Hi guys, welcome to my most favorite day of the week because I get to talk to you. And you see these gorgeous onions? These came out of my garden. So sometimes people are wondering what's going on with the garden, but you can see. Now, this is the goal, onions this size, because my sister, whom you will meet at some point soon, could do onions like this. So I said, that's what I want. I said that to Morgan, my farm manager. I said, I want onions as big as hers, and it is onion season, as you can see. So I wanted to share that with you because I think they're fabulous. And they will hold for quite a period of time. I'm just going to put these down out of the way. Oops. Okay. Now, I'm going to tell you, other than people that are here on the farm, nobody else knows about those onions, except for you guys now. The reason why I bring that up is because the Supreme Court gave DOGE access to sensitive Social Security data. I wanted to talk about this because, you know, I'm of an age when we were more used to privacy. So privacy is important to me. Not that we really have that much privacy anymore because we've been taught to give it away liberally, but let's see. The court's decision allows the Department of Government Efficiency, DOGE, to have full access to personally identifiable information in the Social Security Administration database. And the court also blocked a judge's order requiring DOGE officials to testify and produce records to a watchdog group. So the information that they were given, the disputed data includes Social Security numbers, addresses, birth and marriage certificates, tax and earnings records, employment history, and bank and credit card information. Now, I don't know. This is just my opinion. I really do want to know what you think about it, but it seems to me like this could be laying the foundation for a social score. You know, and that's what makes it imperative for you to actually have wealth outside of the system. We saw what happened in Canada with the perfectly legal trucker strike, and then all of their accounts were, boom, shut down. So the strategy that we employ, the sound money strategy, is built in layers. And part of that layer is having the cash, right? Because outside of the system, in your possession, that's your very first line of defense, because that is what most people are going to more recognize. But we're also seeing something really interesting that's happening in England, and that is more people are taking out and holding on to cash because of the global uncertainty. And even though it kind of seems to have calmed down a bit in some ways, it's really not calm at all. And what we need to make this transition complete is a big crisis that just everybody gives up whatever little bit of privacy they have, and then they're all completely tied into the system. So I'm going to go to questions, but I really want to know how you feel about this most current evolution and whether or not you think that this is setting the foundation for social scoring to come here in the U.S. You know, the more we do online, the more that is recorded with technology is great. You know, don't get me wrong. I can see advantages to a lot of this stuff, but I can also see the disadvantages. And so really what you want to do is balance that out and get yourself in a position where it doesn't matter whether you're right or wrong. A layered approach with cash as your first line of defense if they cut you out of your bank accounts, and then you go into silver or fractional silver as your second line of defense. And those, that line of defense could also, that's where a lot of the, services like Kinesis and Glint could work in that first line of defense, as well as gold backs, right? This is where I see all of those things in the very first line of defense. Then we move on to sustaining your standard of living. That does include barterable silver, barterable gold. And also we want to protect any fiat money wealth that you've got inside of the system. And then position yourself to take advantage of the opportunities that always present, like I showed you last week about what's happening in Turkey. So they sold their cars and houses to buy gold, and now it is definitely too soon. But they're selling their houses and they're selling their gold to buy houses and cars. It's definitely too soon, but at least it does show you that full circle moment. If you haven't watched that video, you want to make sure and go back in and watch it. And I'm going to start to take questions, but please tell me how you feel about this and what you think that this could lead to, because I consider this, they have all of this information. It's not like they don't have it, but it's siloed, right? It's siloed in different areas, and so they haven't really fully connected all of the information. Once they do, that's what is really going to enable that social scoring and that complete control of the population, unless you have formed those local communities to ensure your surety on your food, your water, your energy, all of those things. So I'll start with questions, but hi, Theodora. Hi, Lynette. Do you think Judy Shelton, Trump's former economic advisor, will become the new Fed chair and replace Powell? I really, really, really hope so. She had kind of a hard time getting appointed the last time. But this is a new era. It is. This is Trump 2.0. And so personally, I really would love to see that. I really would. It goes into what I've been saying about this being our absolute best opportunity to have sound money back in our system again. So, when that's going to happen, I don't think he's going to fire Powell, because that would just be way too obvious. And when he threatened it before, everybody went up in arms. Maybe that's going to change. Maybe it's not. So it could just have to wait until Powell is done with his term. That's probable, but we'll see. We'll see. And Deb Warner asks, after the revaluation of gold, will the stock price and fundamental value be the same number? Okay, let me read the whole question, then I'm going to break it down to make sure that I understand it. So if I don't understand this the way that you really want me to, please let Josh know. He'll put it up. After the revaluation of gold, will the stock price and fundamental value be the same? Well, yes and no. Okay, so the revaluation of stocks, yes, because the any of the purchasing power value that yet remains in this will be burned off. And so what we see is the stock market plunge overnight as gold rises in that revaluation. So you could absolutely say that, yeah, stocks are now going to move to fundamental value because that's what's happening with the dollar. It's moving to its true fundamental value. Any illusion above that is inaccurate. So in that case, absolutely. Now, the first overnight revaluation, though, is not really likely to take gold or silver to its true fundamental value. Globally, on average, we see those overnight revaluations happen at least 3 times. It could be more than that. It could be less than that. I don't know. I mean, Venezuela and Zimbabwe are on their 6th overnight actually 7th overnight revaluation for Zimbabwe, because they did it again in October, and they did it to install the Zimbabwe gold, which has not proven to be gold because it is pegged and not backed. And it was digital only. You could never take possession. And I'm telling you, if you don't hold it, you don't own it. So that's why you hear me harping on redeemable gold. And maybe I'm just shouting into a void, but if enough people if we demand redeemable gold, that means and I don't care what the percentage of gold is in the currency, because frankly, personally, I would gladly give up the fiat money. That has no value to me, but this does. So for redeemable gold, whatever percentage, 40%, that's what they did when they first instituted and legalized the Federal Reserve, 40% gold backed from 100% gold backed. But then they keep whittling away and whittling away and whittling away. But I will tell you that I would much rather have this in my possession and know that if I don't like what the government or the central banks are doing, I can demand to have the gold shipped to me. That makes all the difference in the world, because that's the way that we hold the toes to the fire. So yes on the dollar and dollar denominated assets, no on gold and silver on the first go around. And let's see, what have you heard about all the new digital coins being pegged by gold? Look, why I just got this. This is Ethereum's physical representation of their digital currency. It's gold. This is Bitcoin's physical representation of their digital currency. It's gold. This is XRP's physical representation of their digital currency. It's gold. A pegging is not a backing, because you can't take possession of it. They can continue to manipulate that market. And there is a reason why they want you to think that this is gold. What is that reason? Confidence and trust. Because even though we've been taught away from this, we still have it in our vernacular. Good as gold, the goose that laid the golden egg, the golden rule. And these representations prove that point. Why aren't they green like dollar bills? Because they need your confidence. So, it is, pegging doesn't mean caca. It just doesn't mean caca. I don't care about the pegging. But yeah, what have you heard about it? I'm telling you that this is true. Pegging just means that they can manipulate the visible spot price, and then that's what you're going to. ETFs are pegged to gold. But what do? They sell off on a daily flipping basis gold to pay the ongoing fees. So do you own gold? No. You own shares in a trust. You own something that you perceive is as good as gold. But I've shown you many times how those fees erode that principle, and all that really is pegged to a manipulated spot market, and it's about them accumulating their fees. I read that statement and wondered if it was pure speculation at this point. Yes, it is. Look, I'm just waiting for the test. This stuff has not been tested. I'm waiting for the test. Who is going to survive? I can't really answer that. I can speculate on who's going to survive, but we're going to have to see actually who's going to do it. So yes, pegging means caca. It doesn't mean anything. Must be redeemable, must be backed. And they can't say backed if it's not redeemable. They will, because that's how they're going to want you to think. Just like Zimbabwe did. Excuse me. They said that the Zimbabwe gold dollar was backed by gold. but it wasn't redeemable, and you couldn't even get the bills in physical form. Nothing was physical, and that's what enabled them to do that 44% overnight devaluation last October. I hope that reveals the lie, because it certainly did to me. But I might be a little more skeptical. We have to remember where I've lived my life. My entire life has been in this arena on some level. So, and Deb Warner asks, oh, that's the one. Okay. And Pirate Dude, when would be a good time to trade silver for gold? Should we wait for the ratio to get smaller between the two? Personally, I don't really care about that ratio, because I've done enough studies on what happens to gold and silver during these reset events, and we will see that grow narrow. But here's the problem. For me, I put function before form. So, and we do that at Zang Enterprises with the strategy. That's the first conversation. We want to meet you where you are, right? And help understand. We need to understand what it is that you understand, so that we can provide for you education that enables you to put your best interest first. So I really don't care that much. It is a great time to trade silver for gold if you have enough silver for the fractional, for the barterable part of your portfolio. Call us. I mean, it's real simple. Call us, have that conversation. Let us see, how much silver do you need? How much gold do you need? What kind of silver do you need? What kind of gold do you need? That's where you start, not putting the cart before the horse. You want to put the horse first, and the horse is your goal. And that's what should drive you. And that's what drives us. And that's what enables us to really help you make the choices on assets that will actually support what it is that you're trying to accomplish. That's it. That's how we operate. And Douglas Travis asks, when states allow silver and gold to pay for goods and services, isn't that just a covert way to confiscate people's metals while at a low price? It could be, and I'm not saying that is absolutely out of the question. If that gold and silver does not come back into circulation, then that is indeed the case. However, we have to also get, it's a balancing act, because we also have to get the states to legalize gold and silver. And there's a big test in the power of the states that's happening right now in California. And I'm not getting political about this, but I think we all need to pay attention to what's happening there, because the state's job is to support the individual. The federal government's job, and I'm talking about in the Constitution, was to support the states, whose job was to support the individual. That has been turned on its head, not just now. I mean, that's been shifting for a very long time. Really, that started in 1913, and now it's flip-flopped. And everything seems to be about supporting the federal government. So it is critically important for the states, and it's not just allowing silver and gold to pay for goods, but removing that taxable event, because that taxable event is part of the tools that they use to keep people away from actually holding gold and silver. So it's way more complicated than a covert way to confiscate people's metals. And I don't think the price really matters, because is it really a big deal if they do this? I mean, they've done it for everything else. They've done it for less. So, I think it's more about getting this legalized and putting pressure. For me, it's about putting pressure on the federal government. But another great way to do it is just by converting this garbage into this garbage. Oh, sorry, this is not garbage, but converting this garbage into sound money, real money. That's what we have to do. So I want to see the taxable event at a state level and then at a federal level. You don't actually, you pulled, I don't think we can do it now because we're not set up for it, and I don't see the questions in advance. But there is that video and audio that I have on Ron Paul, where he is in front of the states. So can we post that video somewhere?
We can post it.
Okay, so we'll post it. There's also a video on him saying that this is the only kind of gold that he buys, too. So I'm right there with Ron Paul, and he certainly knows a lot about sound money. And 999 fine 4, redeemable will never happen. You know, you could be right, but I know for sure if I don't ask for it, if I don't put it out there, for sure it's not going to happen. But please explain to us why the collectibles market has collapsed, and if we will ever see our investment regain its value. So I have not seen the collectible market collapse. If you're referring to the high that it hit in 2008 as the whole system was imploding, and it hasn't fully recouped from that, but it's not too far away from it. So why the collectible markets have collapsed is because they papered over everything and inspired people to have confidence in the stock market and really actually in the digital markets. You've heard me say this a gazillion times. It is not an accident, in my opinion, because I can't prove this. It is not an accident that Bitcoin was born in January of 2009. And quantitative easing was born in March of 2009. It was sold to the public as being outside of the system. So you tell me how much more of this garbage would have gone into the collectible market and just the gold market if this was not born. And I also task you, can you please show me how it's outside of the system? Because it looks to me like the system has completely adopted it. And, you know, I'm not saying it's going away. It's not. But understand the manipulations that take place. And it also goes to why it is so critically important for you to understand the fundamental value, because manipulation is a short term, and short term can be relative as well. But this manipulation was to keep you away from this, and keep you in the system. So you want to know why it hasn't fully recouped? This is why, because people think that this has value, because the market has made it look like it has value. And there is value. There is some value in here. I'm not saying there's no value at all, but give me a list of the utility. Can you give me a list? Because whatever you paid for this, right? If I'm right, and I mean, this is just a repetition of history. How is this created? It's created from debt. How much of this is created? How much debt is there globally, right? So if this is worth 40 grand, do you not think that it's going to recoup that? Just as the currency gets inflated away and they do those overnight revaluations. That's how it works. They don't want you in this. And the reason why I like the collectibles is because they're a lot more private and they're a lot less likely to have an overt confiscation. It's a different classification. So, yes, you will see your investment regain its value. And I can't guarantee this, but I'm quite certain that it will go surpass the 1989 highs, because Wall Street always has something to hype on, don't they? Always. When this thing dies, they hype up the next thing. When that thing dies, they hype up the next thing. On and on and on. What I'm telling you to do is get real. And really, You know the true value of the collectible coin, if you strip away all of the collectability, is 40 grand. Did you pay at this moment? And the more of this that they print, I wish that would happen to them, but the more of this that they create, the higher the fundamental value in terms of that, this stuff goes. So yes, it requires some patience and accumulation. But again, I go back to what are your goals, because there are different kinds of silver and gold for your assets. Yeah, I am highly confident. In fact, that's where I have by a wide margin the lion's share of my wealth. So I must be pretty darn confident that history will repeat itself, just like it has over 4,800 times. And Nancy Schultz asks, hi, Lynette, when things go south, having cash is important. Yep. Should we be taking out smaller denominations in cash? Thank you for all you do. Thank you for being here. P.S. Purple is beautiful color on you. Thank you so much. I do like purple a lot, actually. So, yes, cash is important, and you want the smaller denominations. You want all denominations, right? There's really no really big denominations anymore, but dollars, $5, $10, $20 is the lion's share of what you should have in cash, but you also want some hundreds too, because I mean, if you take $100 to the grocery store, what are you buying these days? So yes, I do like the smaller denominations a lot. Just like in my fractional silver, I mean, I have all sizes. I have all sizes. But if I could only choose one size, it would be dimes, just because it's easier to put two dimes together than break a quarter in half. And I'd say the same thing with the cash, right? It's easier to put a bunch of bills together because you can't just tear. I mean, I love to do it myself, but I can't take this to the store and say, okay, this is $50. Doesn't work. So yes. And thank you very much for the compliment on the purple. I do like purple. It's this silver hair. It's this gray hair that I have. And Eldon Elder asks, how can they measure the value of precious metals using the dollar as the unit of measurement if the dollar becomes worthless? Exactly. You're absolutely right, Eldon, but it still is how many of these, or, we see the same thing in Turkey that's in hyperinflation, and Venezuela and all those places, right? That they do value it in terms of this, but it's also off the rails because this is the currency of the land right now. This is the tool of barter. So gold and silver are always valued in the local currency, also by how much you can buy with them. So that's why you've heard over the years that an ounce of gold would buy a man's suit of armor 6,000 years ago. An ounce of gold would buy a really nice men's suit in the early 20s. I even have an original article on that, a $20 gold coin. And guess what? At $3,300, $3,400, can you buy a nice men's suit with that? So yeah, they do have to value it in the local currency, whatever that currency is. Just know that it maintains its purchasing power when this stuff does not, by design. And Pirate Dude asks, do you believe silver is in its breakout phase? Yeah, I love that. And we didn't talk, wait, wasn't that? Seems to me, can we go on an image? Can we do that? Because yeah, I'm glad you brought that up, and we recorded two pieces before, and I know that I showed the silver breakout, but I don't remember talking about that slide. I didn't have it up, did I? Okay, hold on a second. Oops. That's not actually what I wanted to do. Let me just see where I put that, because I would like to discuss that. And where did it go? There it is. Oops. Okay, can we put that up? And we're going to. So the answer is yes, in one word, but let me show you the slide, okay? Because, definitely, I'm not seeing it, okay? Definitely a breakout. So, yes, I would absolutely say that it's headed toward concluding that cup, right? And this is 100% the breakout. Yep. And thank you for bringing that up. I don't know why I didn't see that anywhere. I know, right? I don't know. We'll figure it out. We'll figure it out later. That's what happens. But and Pirate Dude, yes. So yes, Pirate Dude, 100%. I believe that silver is in its breakout phase. And I'm just going to move this over here in case there's something else we want to pull up. And Craig Miller asks, what currency will your property taxes be able to be paid in with? Well, it depends on the state. If it's legalized, you actually could use gold and silver for legal tender, or you can simply convert it, right? This is what I like for my property taxes. You simply convert it into whatever the local currency is and pay with that. And you're probably going to be, at this stage anyway, better off doing that because we're not getting true valuations on gold and silver yet. More, and silver's just broken out, but whatever the government says you have to pay it with, so whether it's a state or it's a federal government, they will dictate what currency that needs to be paid in. But you can always, history has shown this, 100% of the time, you can convert your gold and silver into whatever the local currency is, wherever you are in the world, because it's universal. And Jacqueline asks, why are we seeing a surge of interest in state-level initiatives like Arkansas and Florida's constitutional gold currency legislation? What's driving this movement? That's a great question, Jacqueline. Well, actually, it's all of the chaos that's happening, but it's also the devaluation. And as I said earlier, really constitutionally, it was the individual that was supposed to be at the head of this pyramid, and then the states were supposed to support that, and then the federal government's supposed to support the states that's supposed to support the individual. And so I think what we're having is a full circle moment with people and governments and states understanding and recognizing the massive spending and devaluation that's been going on and finally starting to say no. That's a lot of it. And what's driving this movement is that recognition, that high inflation. We've seen that interest pick up as inflation has picked up. And it's picked up since 2008 as well. So I think a lot of what we're seeing is about the dawning awareness of the public to how little value this crap has and how rapidly it is losing its value. And we all have to participate because we need the states to put pressure on the federal government and to legalize it and remove that taxable event from sound money and have it part of the currency again. And we're all part of this. So, what is driving the movement? What's driving the movement for you? And maybe we look in the mirror and we ask ourselves that question. I'm doing it personally because of the children. What kind of world do we want to leave these kids? Just debt that they're going to have to pay and be as slaves? Or do we want them to have the ability to dream and make those dreams come true? If we don't put sound money back in this system, we will never have a level playing field. And that means that your children, your grandchildren, your great-grandchildren will not have the opportunities that they should have because they've been stolen from them. I'm saying take our power back. And all we have to do is get enough people to buy gold and silver. And I think we can do that. I really do. And maybe redeemable will never happen again, but what I know is this. If I don't try to do something, for sure, it's not going to happen. If we can get 3% of the population to demand it, we got a shot. And if Judy Sheldon is in there, we got a shot. So I'm taking that shot. And I hope you're taking it right along with me. And Jeanette Feud asks, when they tokenize everything, if you own a home without a mortgage, can they tokenize it? Jeanette, they're going to want you to cooperate. They're going to want you to volunteer. So if you think about so I don't think that they're going to, where you hear my hesitation is everything is changing right now. But what I know is that governments and central banks typically like distance between their policies and how that's introduced to the public. And therefore, they would prefer for you to want to tokenize your house. And if you think about what happened in 2008 and how a lot of people restructured their mortgages, that are already this thick that you don't read, I think that those changes are going to become very apparent the next time. But that's really how they're going to try and inspire you to do it. They want you to volunteer. I don't see them forcing it, because then you know that things have changed. I see them more wanting your cooperation so that you don't realize that things have changed till it's too late. And Terrafin asks, hi Lynette, how can a mortgage-free house become tokenized? I don't really understand the concept. Great show. Well, I'm glad you liked the show, Terrafin. And I recently did a video, maybe we can put the link in, on the tokenization. And I think Emerald is also planning on doing something on that. And she might even simplify it more. But that's easy, because a mortgage is just a note against the property. If the house is free and clear, you can take the equity in that house and have that turned into a digital representation of the equity in your house. Then you're holding it on your phone and they nudge you or encourage you to start to spend that equity. But it's just kind of, that's the way they would do it. They just take the value of your house in terms of dollars, whatever that market value is, and then they just create a digital representation that is broken down into itty bitty pieces. So if your house is worth $1 million, you might have 1 million tokens or even more, right? They can be broken down. I don't think there's much limitation on how far down they can break these tokens. But they just create this digital representation that they now put in your account, and now you can spend it. And other people can buy it when you spend it. So that's how they can do it. But I don't think they'll force you. I think they'll want you to just volunteer it and say, okay, this crisis is so big, so here, I need money fast, and the only way I can get it is if I agree to tokenize my house, and I'm desperate, and I'll tokenize my house, right? That's typically how they do it. And Miramar asks, hi, Lynette, yes. Well, the Dahlonega Mint, and I don't know why I didn't see this, I just kind of got caught up. But that's an old mint, like from something like the early 1800s during the gold rush. And I also looked up so those coins are fabulous. They're really, really early coins. They are in the collectible realm. I also looked at the Mint ID coins, and it's kind of a similar concept to what we're looking at here in this tamper-proof case, that it's slabbed, but they're doing it with bullion versus the collectible coins. So that's bullion. The Dahlonega Mint would be coins that I would buy. In fact, I think I do own 1 or 2 of them. They're in the vault. And if I go over to the vault and I pull them, then I'll bring them to show. So those are good. But the Mint ID coins, that's bullion. So you can do it, and that's part of the step toward tokenization, by the way, as well. But it's also a way to track absolutely everything. And I mean, honestly, there's barcodes on here to make sure that this is verifying that it is what it is. So it's not a horrendous concept at all, but that the Mint ID is bullion, the Dahlonega are not. They are collectible. And Monkey Wrench asks, would you say that gold really hasn't moved as much as silver have? If you look at the difference gold is selling now from 2018 to date, silver has moved much higher. What do I think about it? I don't think about them in terms of dollars because I don't care about them in terms of dollars. But actually, on one of the 2018, let me see. Let me pull it up because I can get real specific on that if I'm in the right slideshow, which I don't think I am yet, but I think I can be. Nope. This isn't going to cooperate with me. I'm sorry. But, you know, silver is severely undervalued and it's dirt cheap, but it kind of straddles two worlds. So you've got to deal with what's happening in the global economy at the same time. So percentage wise, maybe it has moved. I'll have to look at it to determine, but I don't view this as a trade anyway. So this is the primary currency metal. Gold is what they reset the currencies against. They don't reset them against silver. Additionally, during hyperinflation, which is what I believe we have already begun to enter, gold outperforms silver because it is, again, the primary currency metal. Silver is the secondary currency metal. I own both. But I define what it is that I'm trying to accomplish first. And then I allow that to guide me to what I need to buy. But silver might have moved higher. I don't know. I'll look at that. $2,018 today. Okay. And I'll talk about that next week. And Lynette, is there a class of silver coins similar to pre-33 gold? And what do you suggest in collectible silver? Yes, there is. And that happens to be something that I give my grandson because he loves silver. And so to slab, I have some, I think 64 Carson City silver dollars. That is not really where I put a lot of my wealth because historically they just don't perform as well and they're not the primary currency metal. And I'm not concerned about confiscation around silver like I am around gold. So for me personally, other than for gifts, which I will do slab silver for gifts, but I like the slabbed coins. It depends on what you're trying to accomplish. So there is a class of silver, absolutely, that are mint state that have never been in circulation. And there's some gorgeous ones like rainbow toned that can perform. So if you're doing that, you really need to go to super rare. And that's up to you. We certainly have the ability to do everything and anything from bullion to the most rare coins. So have a conversation with your strategy specialists and let them know also what you want to learn about. And we will get you there. That's our goal. Our goal is to meet you where you are and help you get to where you want to go. And Burak Gursat says, ma'am, I found you while listening to Hamza Yarda. I'm sorry, don't know how to pronounce that. I'm sorry if I butcher anybody's name. I'm from Turkey. Can you give me info about granular silver? Does it have to be a coin? No, it does not have to be a coin. Gold and silver in any form is monetary at its base. And so there are little silver and gold, frankly, little pellets, and that's a way to do it. So is any jewelry you might have or flatware. Just keep in mind that gold and silver in any form is monetary at its base. And I really appreciate you watching this video from Turkey. It's fabulous. I'd love to get to Turkey one of these days, because I think it's so interesting to see. I mean, you guys gave me a full circle moment. How exciting is that for me, who's been watching this on some level her whole life? So, no, it does not have to be a coin, and the granular silver are just little pieces of silver, but anything, any form of silver, 825 sterling silver is 92.5% pure, and the coins, any form, monetary at its base. And Edward Hernandez asks, Lynette, is it true pre-33s have an ounce less of gold than a regular gold ounce eagle? Okay, so this is my, it doesn't have an ounce less, because these are both basically 1 ounce coins, okay? But this is, and they're both the same purity level, which is like a 22 karat, but this is a full ounce. It's printed right on the coin, and this is a little bit less than a full ounce. And Connie Karn asks, Larry Lepard, author of The Big Print, advocates that currency and its 3 traditional uses should essentially decouple from the 4th use. Well, what would my retort? It already has. By design, actually. So yeah, I mean, what are the 4 functions? This is, they sell it to us just like they sold us on crypto, right? Oh, this is all outside of the government. So, we need this money. We need a centrally controlled money, because there are 4 functions that it performs, and it enables a society to specialize, because, bartering is awful hard. So it is supposed to be, money is supposed to be a tool of measure. That's what enables you to price things. A tool of barter. So if I give you this, you will give me that at that price. A short-term store of value to make sure that you are fairly paid for labor. And a long-term store of value so that if you save that money for future use, you are always being fairly paid for your labor. Well, this, by design, eliminates that 4th function. So it decoupled from that? It has. Why is that okay with you? You really agreeing to work for less in the future than you work to earn it to begin with, because that wealth transfers to somebody else? Why is that okay with you? And once they get us into the digital currencies, then forget that short-term store of value too. We will be down to 2. Because what the central banks are talking about is their ability to push interest rates negative. And that's, and people go, that can't happen again. Well, yes, it can. And Switzerland might actually be forced to go back into negative rates because of disinflation. Let's not call it deflation. Disinflation that then would lead to deflation. How about hyperdeflation, which is actually a depression? Let's kind of change, let's wordsmith this so that people don't understand what's going on. Yeah, I have a lot of thoughts on this because that's not okay with me. Is it okay with you if they just use you, abuse you, and then put you out to dry as your wealth and your work and your time? That's what we all have that's most valuable. That's why I really appreciate you being here, because that's the most valuable asset that you have is your time and how you're going to spend it. But I'm pretty sure that you want to get something out of that time and not allow them just to inflate it away, because wealth never disappears. It just shifts location. So your wealth is shifting their way. Not okay with me. So yeah, Larry Lepard, meh, I give him that. So you got my retort. And Eldon Elder asks, thanks for the answer to my question. It still seems strange to value gold using dollars. I agree with you. 4,600 times zero is still zero. So is 10 trillion. And that's why you wouldn't want to convert it back into dollars unless you needed to do so to conclude a transition into an income producing asset that you can't outlive. So you're not going to do it now because you know it's going to lose value. And when the hyperinflation becomes really apparent, then people are seeing that value being lost really, really rapidly. So as we execute this strategy, this is a long-term strategy. This isn't a short-term, day-to-day thing. That's why it's built in layers so that when things happen and you need some cash, you have some cash, right? When things happen and you need some barterability, you got some barterability. But yeah, it is strange using dollars or euros or yen that we have accepted as money when truthfully, they're not even pieces of paper mostly. It's decreed money by governments that all they really want to do is control you more and more. And you're 100% right. In fact, 10 trillion times zero is still zero. That's why watching the stock market go up or the crypto markets go up, it's an illusion to keep you suckered in. I'm saying it's far more important to understand the true value of those assets, which dollars, the Federal Reserve, I've shown you a gazillion times, zero, big fat goose egg. So anything that you can only convert into that, yeah, it's a big fat goose egg. But if the government requires you to pay for property or pay your taxes or whatever in their junk, then you convert this into that and pay it. But it'll be boom, boom. You're not going to convert it and then hold it because of exactly why you said, Eldon. Exactly why. Hey, Lynette. So Dylan Williams asked, hey, Lynette, you mentioned all the currency that went belly up. Can you list a few? Sure, I can. I've got a few right here. All right, I'll put the dollar over here for the moment. But this is a Indonesian rupee. That's gone. This is Islamic. Okay, so this is an Iranian dinar. Gone. All right, I guess you can still buy some stuff with that. This is Venezuelan bolivar. Done. This is an old Zimbabwe dollar. Done. But you know who really, here is a, here is another Iraqi dinar. Oh, how about this one? This is a Confederate dollar. So this is a U.S. currency, a Confederate dollar. Can't buy anything with that. This is another bolivar. This is another Iraqi dinar. Bolivar. Oops. And this is a state of Florida dollar. Can't buy anything with that either. But Steve Henke, Henke, studies hyperinflation, and he's got a whole list. And what's really interesting about his list, and you're going to see it's itty bitty print because there's so many, because there's 4,800, right? So if you want to know more about that, I definitely can recommend Steve Henke's work. I pay attention to it quite a bit. And you'll see for yourself. But what I find really interesting, because there are certainly occurrences prior to 1913, but not that many of them, right? Most of the currency collapses of those 4,800 come after we shifted into a fiat money system after the world did. So and we can make that available too, but that maybe I'll do something on that. I mean, I have some things that I can show you, but yeah, there's lots of them. Steve Henke, you can go in and you can read the whole list. It'll give you all the information. I love him. And Caleb's Carnivore Quest says, does Basel III really matter? Well, honest to goodness, I don't think so, because we've got a deregulation in process. So even though that is supposed to go into place, we'll see if it does. I will do a show just on Basel III, but you haven't seen me get all excited about it because I personally don't think it's going to happen. I don't think it's actually going to be locked into place. And I would also like to point out that all of this happened after the 2008 crisis. You see the distance between things? And they started the deregulation right after they wrote this massive legalese, all this garbage in there before anything even started other than bail-ins. That was in, tested, and remains in. I don't see them taking that out. But I don't think it really matters. What we know is gold is a tier 1 asset. What we know is that gold is the only safe haven play. But you got to hold it, because if you don't hold it, you don't own it. And by the way, Caleb, did you happen to call us? I'm hoping you did, because we are so keen on education that we would help you wherever you're at with your education. And we've got some things in the works too. So where can I buy Mercury dimes? Call us. We can get you Mercury dimes. That's easy. So Abel in Vegas says, we were just in Vegas. Can the government force us to buy debt bonds? Would there be a way to avoid it? Can they force it? Again, most governments want your easy cooperation. The way that they have kind of forced it is, up until 2008, and that started breaking down. And I showed you the chart on the VIX on the 10-year Treasury. Banks and governments were buying the 10-year Treasury. Well, that all shifted after 2008. And so it went from long-term hands into short-term hands. Can they force us to buy the debt bond? Part of those short-term hands are institutional investors that invest your money. So without forcing you to do it, they can change and tweak some tax laws and different laws to inspire you to do it. I mean, after all, if you buy a treasury, it is exempt from federal tax, and I think it's also exempt from state tax. Now, if you buy a state municipal bond, that is going to be exempt from state tax mostly. I mean, there's some that aren't, but and it may or may not be exempt from federal tax. So the governments, whether they're state or federal, use taxation to manage how you think about things, right? And whether or not you want to do it. I don't think that they're going to come in and decree it. So I think that they've done what they're going to do with that, Abel, just by switching it to shorter term hands and then inspiring those shorter term hands to continue to buy. And it's a problem. It's a problem because those shorter term hands. In fact, we just recorded one this morning on the debts and the deficits globally matter again. And so that'll go out next week sometime. So you'll see all of a sudden these things matter again. And that's not, it's an indication of where we are, but not necessarily, expect a lot more volatility and expect a crisis. That's what you got to do. You got to expect a crisis. And Stephen Brewster asked, does it surprise you Warren Buffett holds so much cash and possibly waiting for stock market crash to invest rather than buy gold and silver, asking due to failing currency? I actually don't think that Warren Buffett tells us everything that he knows and everything that he's doing, because he does mostly, and I've seen it over and over again, act like a shill for the markets. The fact that he is sitting on so much cash is very, very telling that he expects some kind of implosion, right? Number one. And number two, have you read what his father wrote about redeemable gold money. So I know how Warren was raised, and he was raised to believe what you and I talk about all the time. So I would not be so sure. In fact, I would think just the opposite. I'll betcha that good old Warren Buffett is holding a lot of gold, and probably even collectible gold. I can't guarantee it. I haven't seen it. He doesn't call and talk to me, but I know how he was raised. And so that would have been just like I was raised in that way. You were raised the way you were raised, right? So we believe these truths, especially if they're in our formative years. I can't guarantee it, but I'd bet you anything that he's got lots of gold. And Jacqueline Marie, you need to raise that. Oh, why are you fear-mongering? I don't consider what I do fear-mongering. I consider what I do showing you what's happening, telling you what's happened in the past, and because there's so much evidence that of things that happen the same way over and over again, what I'm attempting to do is educate you so that you can make choices that put your best interest first, right? This is what's happening. I can't help it. I can't stop it. I don't even report on a lot of it because I really do my best to stay in my lane. I look at what's happening to the economy. I look at what the central bankers are doing for themselves. I look at and then I tell you. And by the way, I give you all the links. So don't take my word for it. I just don't want you to take anybody's word for anything. Do your own due diligence. Therefore, if you do that, you then have the ability to formulate educated choices that puts your best interest first, regardless of what anybody says. And I try and make it easy for you by in all of my work that I do, I give you the links to most of the research that I do. I'd write a book every week if it was everything. But therefore, I'm not saying, hey, I'm not trying to scare you. All I'm trying to do is show you what's happening so you can be in a position where it doesn't matter and it doesn't hurt you. And Wolf asks, in a financial collapse, would a person's Social Security and pension disappear? Yeah, because as Eldon pointed out earlier, 1 trillion times zero is still zero. And that's why it's so important to be properly diversified. And because we're so clear on what the fundamental value is of gold and silver, whatever you're going to hold inside of that system, this is how much gold you need to make sure that that's protected. That's a what if I'm right and what if I'm wrong, right? You want to be in a position where it really doesn't matter whether or not you're right or wrong, because then you don't have to worry about anything. You can sleep at night. You're good to go. But yes, Wolf, I'm sorry, but in a financial collapse, they may still send you your Social Security. They might still send you the pension, but you won't be able to buy anything with it. So just make sure you're properly diversified. And that's also where community comes in, right? Local community to create that surety in your food, your water, energy, security itself, because there is security in numbers, wealth preservation, community, barterability, and shelter. Just get all of that done. Then you don't have to worry about anything. But you want to make sure that you have security in all of those areas. And Faye Bouteau asks, hi, Lynette, what do I think about goldbacks? Well, I have one right here, and I can see a place in there, especially as more businesses adopt acceptance of goldbacks. But there is embedded in here, this happens to be a $1 goldback, 1,000th of an ounce of gold. And so I see a place. Now, this would not be, the premiums here are ginormous. So again, that goes back to understanding the fundamental value. I'm looking at its functionality. I can see it for a certain level at the very beginning as the crisis unfolds. So I do like them. That would not be how I would build the lion's share of my position, not even marginally, but I can definitely see a reason to hold some. And Caleb Carnivore Quest, hi Lynette, how can I tell if a mercury dime or other silver coin is real? Well, we've done videos on all of the different ping tests and things like that, but another way, an easy way, is a magnet, because gold and silver are non-magnetic. Now, another thing that you can do is you can look on the rim of the coin and see if it's all silver, or if it has, I want to say copper, but you know, they don't even put copper in between the coins, the new stuff anymore, because it's too expensive. So you'll see like a line there. Also, it's so easy to get an acid test kit, and it comes with a little stone, and you kind of rub some of the silver there and you put some of the acid in, and it tells you. So there are all sorts of very easy ways and inexpensive ways to know if something's real or not. And Dylan found one, said, I don't agree with the pre-33 coin thing, but Lynette is a true genius. So thank you very much, Dylan. And you know what? In a community, like a family, guess what? We don't all have to agree. But what we do have to do is lend support to each other. And that's what this community is about. And I'd go to, Zang Enterprises, you want bullion? We'll give you bullion. We're still going to set up your strategy, right? So we're still going to do that so that you at least know how to work through things. But what we also then recommend is enough of these to offset this should an overt confiscation take place. That's all. And these typically operate a little at higher levels, so it's not like you're going to have to do a one-to-one. You won't do a one-to-one. It'll be a lot smaller. Call us, have that conversation, and you'll see if it makes sense to you. If it doesn't, we are all here to be of service. We're going to love you no matter what. We're going to take care of you no matter what. Agree with us, disagree with us, doesn't matter. We are a family, we are a community, and we really are here to support whatever you want to do. We'll meet you where you are and give you all the support that we possibly can. And I appreciate that you think I'm a genius, because I didn't know I had a brain in my head until I went away to college. And I had this little old professor. I always loved philosophy, so I used to read a lot of philosophy books. And this man had written one of the books that I had read. And so, oh my God, it was like, I loved this man. I just thought he was the most genius person I had ever met. It was a senior philosophy class, and somehow I managed to get in it as a freshman. And I was really nervous that they would kick me out when they figured out that I wasn't supposed to be in there. But I always participated, and he was really fun to argue with. So whatever his argument was, I just took the opposite position because it was fun. And it was midterms. And he hands out everybody else's midterm paper but mine. And I thought, oh, I failed because I knew I disagreed with him because it's fun to do. And he asked me to stay later. Can you please stay later, Miss Zang? Okay. And so he says to me, and this was the first time anybody ever indicated this to me. He goes, Miss Zang, you have a brilliant mind. I actually looked around to see who he was talking to, because it couldn't have been me. I'm just normal. And he said, no, I'm telling you, you have a brilliant mind. I was so shocked that I kind of like wandered out there in a daze, because here is this person, and we all need somebody in our lives like this, right? Here was this person that helped me see myself in a different way than I ever did. My family sure didn't, right? I didn't know that there was anything at all that was unique or special or smart about me, though I always wanted to be smart. I always did want that. Of course, that was also in the early 70s. and women's lib was rising, and there were all sorts of things that were happening because we were transitioning into a whole new social, economic, and financial system. So I will admit, for anybody that was in my path during that period of time, I got very obnoxious for a while. Some might still think I am, but yeah, don't you dare open that door for me. I could do it myself. So anyway, sorry, I digress. It was just, thank you very much. Thank you. And Sandy Anderson asks, I would like to see a lot more from your bug out garden. Me too. Our bug out garden, Morgan was just up there last week. We now have somebody else that's up there, so you will, but I think you want to see a lot more from the gardens down here too, because these are definitely more prolific. And I honestly am working on getting staff, people up there that can bring those gardens back to life. We've found a few issues with the orchards. I don't know whether or not Morgan actually documented that when she was up there last week. But some of it's kind of sad, and I'm not going to lie. Having said that, though, I have a lot of long storage food up there, and I have 5 full freezers. So, and it's all solar, so it's all off grid. So I still could, I am absolute, and I've got lots of seeds up there as well. So if the gardens, which would make me sad, but it is what it is, and hopefully I will get some produce from the orchards. If I don't get to plant those gardens until we're all physically up there, we have a plan for that in place. So I've got enough food actually for 40 people for 6 months. That's what I said up there. And we'll have chickens up there really quickly. So we'll have some things up there. And if we have to start the gardens from scratch again, then we do. Hopefully we won't have to. And you will see everything unfold. So thank you, because I would like to see more from my bug out garden too, to be honest. But Low Pressure asks, Lynette, should I split my gold and silver in a divorce or give her cash equivalent? Well, you do whatever you're comfortable doing. Personally, I would keep the gold and silver, but you do whatever you're comfortable doing. And Kyoko111 asks, if I'm buying silver long term, would it be better to buy the dips or on a weekly basis? If not allowed to say, I understand. Oh, no, thank you. No, I can say this. Both. Right? You just keep accumulating, because honestly, the system is so fragile that I don't know the exact moment when it's going to become apparent to the public. But I can tell you that underneath the surface that I can see, and there's a lot more that I can't see, it's really fragile and it's breaking down. And especially on the bonds. Bonds are the foundation of the global system. And it isn't just the U.S. bonds that governments and longer-term holders are walking away from. That's happening all over the world, in Spain, in France, in the U.K., everywhere. This is a bond crisis. And I also have to tell you that the technicals told us when they broke in 22, when the Fed and then all the central banks started raising rates, it broke a 44-year trend cycle. A 44-year trend cycle. That means something. Now, here we are. That was 22. Here we are in 25. So people think, oh, nothing really happened. Yes, it happened. And it's continued to happen beneath the surface. And now, we just recorded this morning. Make sure you watch it. Now, it is starting to become apparent. Fear-mongering, when do you want to know stuff? I'm not this is what's happening. You don't want to know it? Okay, well, you have to watch my stuff. You can try and bury your hand. You can head in the sand. You can go la, 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 la. I don't want to hear it. But it doesn't change what's happening at all. So, yeah, just keep accumulating. as much as you can, as quickly as you can, in any form that you can. Just keep accumulating and create that community. You know, we're also mentally, we'd be so much better when we're inside of community than just inside of your head. We have to come together and support each other. And Miramar asks one more. How about collectability, ancient Greek, Roman, Persian, medieval coins? Many are bronze and silver. Stick with the gold and silver. You know, you're bringing this up is perfect, Miramar. Yes, why not? Now, those are more ancient, but yes, why not? I personally don't really consider myself a coin collector. That's not what it's about for me. You know, if it's about sitting and looking, and I mean, I do think they're pretty. I do like to hold them in my hand. But, you know, you see me wear a lot of jewelry. You see some of the pieces, you know, the antique pieces. I do this because this is a monetary life cycle, a currency life cycle issue. And gold is the primary currency metal. And I was alive when it was illegal to hold more than 5 ounces of gold any other way than this way. Actually, they weren't slabbed then this way, because this is pre-1933. And you've seen the purchasing power charts. Between 1913, when they legalized the Federal Reserve, and 1971, when Nixon completely took us off the gold standard, we'd already lost almost 75% of our purchasing power. And you'd say, well, how can they do that if it was backed by gold? But it wasn't redeemable. It was redeemable by the public between 1913 and 1933. Then only by governments between 1933 and 1971. So it must be redeemable in order to be able to hold the government's toes to the fire and say, no, I don't like what you're doing. If you think you can only do that every 4 years in a vote, think again. It doesn't mean anything. We vote with our wallets. We vote with our purses. So, you know, yes, Miramar, anything that you feel comfortable with, you are armed with the true fundamental value of an ounce of gold. So if any of those, this has never happened before, but if it does, right? If all of them lose all of that collectible value, then you still have the value of the underlying gold. You still have that. That's why it's so important to understand fundamental value. And that's why when people get blinded by numbers, this is going up, so it must be great. No, they're just misdirecting you so that you are not protecting yourself. So yes, anything, I mean, I would stay away from bronze, but if you have a collection in them, that's different. Because if you're really collecting that, you're paying attention, you're studying them, you know those nuances. It's not a horrible idea. It's not a horrible idea. I don't know that we will execute the strategy with those kind of coins. These are easier ones to execute the full strategy with, but yeah, whatever you're comfortable with. And Southern Vermont Vintage on eBay. I bought some silver this weekend. Awesome. Nice Victorian bread bowl, fruit bowl, dish, marked $1 in the silver plated pile. It was 283 grams, more valuable to resell than to scrap. Yep, absolutely. And that's what we're talking about here. So, I mean, I can't even tell you how much of this stuff, one of these days, maybe I should take a bunch of it and I could more than cover this table with it for sure. So yeah, I'm right there with you. It used to be easier to find that stuff than it is now, but it's still out there. And if it's marked 925 or sterling silver, it's 92.5% pure. Booty hooty, Rudy Manuti. All day long. Good job. And Solar nodded, would you ever tokenize a portion of your gold and silver? I wouldn't, but it will be an option. Not that I can foresee. If I do, I'll tell you because I'm not going anywhere. But no, I see no reason at all to tokenize any of my assets. They want me to tokenize. They want you to tokenize everything, even this mug. Even this mug, if it's tokenized, they know about it. I can, before you know it, spend all my equity on it, and boom, the WEF, by 2030, you will own nothing. And Boone22 asks, Lynette, do you think we should invest in a freeze dryer? Yeah. You need to have food put back. You know, what's the mantra? Food, water, energy, security, barterability, wealth preservation, community, and shelter. I do want you to understand that I put medicinals in the same category as food because we ingest them both. And food is the most important drug that you put in your body. And you're going to be feeling the outcome. You know, that saying, you are what you eat. So freeze dryer, absolutely. I don't think we've done freeze drying yet. We can have Jason talk about all the different ways that he's canning and doing that. I know he's got the freeze dryer on his list, but I don't think he's bought one yet. But yeah, why not? That's a great way to hold food. Absolutely. Abel Matthew asks, while you may not agree with digital assets, they do have usefulness. Bitcoin has value now. It may not one day, just like all forms of value. So to me, having a little crypto and Bitcoin with gold and silver is best. And I don't disagree with you, Abel. I really don't at all. I think it's good to be diversified. For me, this is about, and I understand, I absolutely do agree with you. But for me, studying currencies and how they shifted, it's more about my personal integrity. I'm not telling you not to do it, right? But my personal integrity is that I recognized when it came on board that this was a Trojan horse. And the more that I see of everything, the more I believe that, because I've watched the evolution. And so ethically, I can't buy into it. If I were not doing this, I probably might have some. I don't know. I might, but I don't know who's going to survive it. It has value in terms of this, and there are some minor utility cases, but it has a limited market. Gold and silver's market is unlimited. So Abel, I support your efforts. I don't see anything wrong with what you're doing. And crypto's here to stay. I mean, that should be pretty clear to everybody. But that's really why I don't own it, because I can't sit here and talk to you and ethically be doing something different than what I'm talking to you about. That's all. That's all. And P2G Networks TV, crypto is a tool, not final destination for wealth. And with price of everything rolling up, this tool makes gold and silver possible for more people. That's true too. That there are definitely benefits with proper literacy. I'd love for you to see it. You know what? I would love for you to show me. I've got to be open. I've got to be open to everything. So is there a way to...
They actually wrote us in the comments and said that they want to reach out and have you on their show. And so I sent them the email that they can contact us.
Awesome.
So the ball is rolling.
The ball is rolling. I am always open to learning and seeing because, look, I'm one person. That means I can only focus on so much. And now I'm lucky to have a community around me because they all also send me lots of things, and that certainly helps. But yes, okay, this is good. I will happily be on your show. Make sure that you tell them that I agreed to it. Okay. And Dora Montalongo says, hello, Lynette. Thank you for all that you do. Thank you for being here. Can you please explain the premium cost to buy and sell the collectible rare gold coins and teach us the process? I feel it is very important, and you are right. So, and we do disclose absolutely everything, but these are more rare, right? So they're harder to get. And also in auction, when there is a frenzy, their prices, well, they behave differently. So the premiums, it also kind of, the premiums kind of vary based on what you do. If you call us, we will walk you through every bit of it, but you pay the fees on the collectible coins, you pay the fees on the way in. And depending upon what you do, we'll determine what those fees are. And we openly discuss that with you. On the way out, there are no fees. You get 100% of the wholesale bid. And inside of those fees, that's for the shipping and the insurance and all of the cost of the coins, etc. So those fees can vary based upon what you're doing to a pretty wide margin. This isn't really an area that I work in, so, and haven't for a long time, and that's really where you hear my hesitancy. But it is really important, and we do believe in full disclosure, and it is in all of our documentation. So you pay the fees up front. On the way out, you get 100% of the wholesale bid, and that's really the way that it works. But we'll get very specific with you, more specific once we know what it is that you're trying to accomplish and how we're positioning them. Because it's certainly different for something like this, or even something like this, or even like a common date, a high population, low quality. So it's not just one, and that's where there's a bit of a challenge. But call us, and we reveal it on our website too. We're really transparent about this. It's important, because if you don't know, I guarantee you the fees are going to be much higher than the ones that you know about. And that also takes you back, no matter what you're doing, to understanding the fundamental value and how these fees and how any taxes and how any losses and how anything is offset, is identifying that fundamental value so that you're not paying more than the fundamental value, because that's the worst thing that happens is it goes to fundamental value, but that's also how you recoup all of those things. I hope that made sense. I kind of feel like I was meandering a little bit. If not, but just really give us a call, and then they can take you through each one of the stages and all of the fees and how it works. Because on some of those products, if you pay a fee up front, you'll pay a fee on the way out. But in the collectible coins, that is not how it works. You pay the fee up front, and on the way out, you get 100% of the wholesale bid. And Nancy Schultz asked, Dear Lynette, would you trade gold 1-ounce Cougarans for U.S. 1-ounce gold Eagles? No, they're pretty much the same. So, no, I wouldn't. Unless we did a national legalization, and then it might be better for you to have gold Eagles. But if it's just gold bullion, you paid the fee to buy the Cougarans. You can sit in them. Eldon Elder asks, have you checked out any of your regular retailers by asking them if they would accept silver and gold instead of fiat? I have not actually done that myself, and I don't have a sample with me. But one of the things that I have been doing is actually handing out constitutional silver and trying to inspire people to learn more about the sound money movement. So although that's not my regular retailers, no, but I have done that with some of the professionals that I work with. And so they might want some of it in fiat and some of it in gold or silver. And so, yeah, that I have actually done, but not a regular retailer. I haven't tried that yet. But it could be fun to do. Maybe we should do that one day. Maybe we'll put that down on our idea list, and that could be an interesting video. And Sean Lansing Feingold asks, hi, Lynette from Canada. Hi, Canada, love Canada. My girlfriend and I would like to know how a financial collapse would ripple to other countries. What effects would be felt first? Well, wow. Since all of the financial system is really completely integrated, so wherever a major upheaval starts, it'll travel through the financial system like we saw in 2008. Because remember, we're talking about counterparties. And so there are all of these contracts that are out there, and any contract is only as good as the counterparty to that contract. So if this counterparty fails, like AIG, right? Back in 2008, AIG was this insurance company, but they were so, they had their tentacles throughout the banking system. So we, the U.S., bailed them out at 100% so that they could then pay out all of those other banks and governments that they had been doing business with. So the way that works, it's all counterparty risk. And if maybe a bank in Canada is bought a derivative from a bank in the U.S. and then they can't pay that off, and then that means the bank in Canada can't pay off to their counterparties what they owe them, and on and on and on. That's how it ripples through the whole system. So, what effects would be felt first? There would be some kind of collapse. If you think about 2008, some kind of black swan event that nobody could see coming, although there are tons and tons of black swans in New Zealand. I saw them and like, wait a minute, all these black swans. But some kind of event that nobody could foresee that shocks the markets and causes, we've been talking about liquidity and the lack thereof, but it would cause the liquidity to dry up like that. Remember in 2008, maybe some of you were in the process of taking out a mortgage or a loan, and you were actually ready to go to closing, and right before your closing, boom, that loan was withdrawn. Well, it was withdrawn because whoever the bank was getting the money from dried up, and then on and on and on. So there would be one catalytic event, but then it would all come down to counterparty risk. And if one big enterprise failed and could not pay out all the counterparties against their contracts, then that would cause those counterparties to fail in delivering out their contracts, and on and on and on. It's like a domino effect. And my wife's idea one, Lynette, I tend to notice that sterling silver 925 jewelry marked China has a larger magnetic pull than pieces coming from Italy. Well, that's really interesting. Maybe you would send us silver is non-magnetic. Do I have a magnet in here? I don't think I do. That's really interesting. Then you might want to think about sterling silver from Italy or someplace else. Might be more pure because it's probably got some other metals in there, but that's weird. Penny Ashburn asks, hi, Lynette. With the St. Gaudens being 90% gold and having less than an ounce of gold, do you feel it's as good a buy and will hold its value as well as a Gold Lady Liberty? The answer is yes, and it does. So also what I like about it is the fact that it's pre-33. This is what my uncle had stuffed in his safes. Were like probably at least 3,000 of these when it was illegal to hold more than 5 ounces any other way. So yes, they do hold their value because they are gold. And I like the pre-33s because I feel more comfortable in case of an overt confiscation. I can't guarantee it one way or another, but the way that they tax it, that's a form of confiscation, isn't it? Just hard for me to imagine they're going to stop at the end, but they might. And Eldon Elder asks, are you heavily into building soil by mulching and doing no-till gardening at your bug out location? It allows nature to do the majority of the work. I will tell you that here in my urban farm here, and this would transfer up there too, we actually do regenerative farming. So to your point, Eldon, I mean, what's important that goes into your food comes from the soil. So the soil has to be rich, and you have to constantly be, feeding it and making sure and not breaking things down like no-till gardening. So the answer is absolutely. I'm super keen on nutritionally dense produce. And if you ever get to Phoenix, you should come and see the farm. And I will tell you, they're going to hate that I say this, I know. But if you are a client of Zang Enterprises and you come into Phoenix, you can ask your strategy specialist to bring you to the farm. It's not far. It's maybe 7 minutes from the office, and you can actually see what we're doing here. And we're really happy to share that. So great question, and it is really important. Regenerative farming. And Stephen Brewster asks, a fiat currency economic collapse. Governments have been preparing, but how long will the possible crash last before the new system, as riots will happen in hyperinflation and force them to hurry it up? Yeah, Stephen, that's I don't know if the new system is completely ready. I know that it hasn't been tested, so it'll have to pass this test. I've prepared personally for 10 years for both my children and myself in my barterable part of my portfolio. Because, to your point, how long is it going to take to work through all of these debt issues and be able to go into the new system, and what's going to justify creating the new money in that new system? And, how are they going to get people to take it, right, and use it? I can't answer any of those questions, to be honest with you. Governments are preparing. That's why they're buying more, especially in the last 3 years and going into the fourth year, more gold than they ever have since tracking began. Who knows more about what they're doing to the currencies? That's why you have to become your own central banker and do the same thing for yourself. But you need to add food, water, energy, the whole mantra. And Eldon Elder, and by the way, I'll just say this, they are rushing. There are a lot of things that are happening technology-wise very, very fast, which means they are rushing. And when people rush and they don't have the same level of oversight and care, accidents happen. That's what I will say. And that's what I expect. I suspect we will see an accident that overwhelms their ability to hide it. Eldon Elder asks, I have been buying a lot of junk silver from my dealer up here in Canada. I love the old coins. I've been able to buy Queen Victoria coins at melt price. Awesome. 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 And Mary Peterson asks, I don't know what you're asking yet. Here you are. Oh, what does tokenization mean? So tokenization, and I would really encourage you to go watch that video that I recently did on tokenization, but it's taking something, and it doesn't even have to be physical, right? It's taking something, but let's just use physical because that could make a little more sense. And it is saying, okay, this microphone, we're going to turn these into itty bitty tokens that are not physical in any way. So they're just a ledger entry, but it would enable you to utilize the equity that I have in this microphone or this gold or anything else. So it's very, and that's the part, honest to goodness, that's the part of the new system that I'm not comfortable with, which is I have to be a very specific kind of engineer. I can't just even be an engineer, which I am not. But I can't even just be an engineer and understand how this money is created, supported, etc. I have to be a very specific kind of engineer to do that. Well, I don't really know what the percentage of the people in the population that would actually fall into that category. But what I can tell you is if I don't understand the money or the contract that I'm signing or any of that, it's easier to be abusive, isn't it? It is. So, I mean, gold is easy and it's clean and it's simple. It has the most demand. It has the most functionality of any asset on the planet. And certainly it's the only financial asset that runs zero counterparty risk. There is no other financial asset that runs zero counterparty risk. Everything else is all counterparty risk. And that means that if there's a failure over here, you're going to feel it. So it's a little, tokenization is really, complicated, super complicated, but it's really just taking any asset and representing it in digital form that are broken down into itty bitty pieces, making it easier for you to spend. But there is a flip side to that too, because we'll have to see as tokenization evolves, because right now you cannot convert it into the underlying tokenized asset. But a smart contract would shift the legal or even the beneficial ownership of that asset to someone else and away from you. So it's really, for me, and as I'm looking at it, it is a tool to get you to spend all of your equity so that you comply with the World Economic Forum's by 2030 you will own nothing. They also say you will be happy, but I don't think you will be happy. And Pirate Dude asks, if all property becomes tokenized, how will our children and grandchildren be able to own a home outright? Exactly. Exactly. That's my point. Exactly. Got to protect them. Got to protect them by this. Now, look, once you're not here anymore, you can't control anything, right? So I have legacy coins that my goal with them is just to be passed down from generation to generation to generation to generation. So that way I know that my family always has wealth. If they force complete tokenizations, which it's not the tokenization, but do you remember when Greece was going through its crisis and they set up an agency and you were required to let them know every single thing that you owned, even if your child made you a little bowl in kindergarten or first grade, you were supposed to register this ownership with that agency. I haven't really looked to see how that's done lately, but this is definitely a much more sophisticated form of getting us to absolutely register every single thing that we own, which means that if they can inspire us to use that as money and buy stuff with it, other stuff with it, or spend it, I mean, yeah. The easier it is to spend money, the more money we spend. It really is just that simple. It is. I mean, who wants to carry these heavy coins around? I'll do it. And yeah, if all property becomes tokenized, your grandchildren will not be able to own anything. That means they will be leasing or renting everything. Kind of like those subscriptions right now. Everything is a subscription, isn't it? Right? And Gloria Curie asks, do you see more bank consolidations? Yep. I got notices from 2 credit card companies saying they have transferred Discovered card going to Capital One and Goldman Sachs card to be Barclays. Yes, I definitely do see more bank consolidations happening. They also have, if you look at the current FDIC report, you'll see that there are still 63 bad banks. Now, some of the banks, like the one that folded, I don't know if that's true. I don't want to say that because I don't know that for sure. I might be thinking about something else. But yeah, we are, this bank consolidation has been really happening since about 2000. A lot of things changed in 2000. They changed the rules. Long-term capital management, that first derivative implosion, changed the rules. So I do see more and more bank consolidations. I also see more and more physical branches closing down and forcing you to use their ecosystem. So, yep. Pirate Dude asks, this is kind of a topic, but were you in Phoenix in 97 during the Phoenix Lights incident, and did you see anything? I was here in 97 because I moved back to Phoenix. Well, I didn't live here before that, but my family was here. So I moved to Phoenix when the girls were 6. They were born in 81, so that was 87, and I didn't see anything. But you're talking about the UFOs that were flying over the valley, right? Did you see it, Josh?
No. I was 7 years old.
Well, you still could have seen it.
Oh, no. I was playing in the dirt, not looking at the stars.
Okay.
And that's it.
Okie doke. Well, this was great. A lot of great questions, and I'm excited to be on that new show and learn more things, right? Because I know the cryptocurrencies are not going away, but don't just volunteer. Become your own central bank, and let's really move this sound money movement forward. Locally, but globally, we have to come together. And until next we meet, please be safe out there. Bye-bye.